Today, I have the great pleasure of sharing with you the books that I've been reading this summer, 10 books that have impacted me, and I believe and I hope they will inspire you. It's very diverse, and I want to hear your feedback when you hear about this episode or when you've read one of those books. Enjoy this episode about 10 books that I read this summer. Hello, everyone. And now that we are going back to school and going back into routine, I thought it would be the perfect moment to share my summer readings. I know a lot of friends are always asking the type of books that I'm reading and getting inspired by that. I'm getting inspired by other people. So in this episode, I will share 10 books that I've been reading or rereading this summer. And I hope that you will enjoy them. And who knows, I have a will to also buy this book and afterwards tell me what you think about it. First and foremost, the amazing book of Evan Neerman called The Cancel Culture Curse. I actually listened to Evan on Audible. He recorded his book. This is really, for me, a book that every single person should be reading. Every adult, every teenager, every person should be aware of what's going on. I think, and I fully agree with what Evan says about the cancel culture. This is a disease that is plaguing our society that is really attacking our freedom. And in his book, not only does he define the cancel culture and the criteria to basically identify if somebody is being canceled, but also he shares ideas and strategies to fight if you're being canceled. And also, very frightening, but very important, he's sharing real example. He's talking also about people like Alan Dershowitz, which obviously is somebody extremely well known that have the means and the platform to fight cancel culture. But he's also sharing other example of individual. Quite frankly, it can happen to anyone, to you, to me. This is really a disaster. This is frightening, and there's also ways to fight that. So, highly recommend that you buy Evan's book, The Cancel Culture Curse, or even better, that you also listen to him narrating his book on Audible. Is very, very impactful. And second book that I wanted to mention today, well, it's very dry because it's about accounting, but it's not that dry because Greg Crabtree and his book Simple Numbers 2.0 has done an amazing job in identifying the elements that will help you manage your business and scale your business. Greg is also someone that I mentioned in the past. He was a guest on the podcast, and I'm going to tell you immediately the episode if you want to listen to Greg. It's episode 85. And by the way, Evan was also a guest. It was episode 164. So Evan, episode 164, and Greg, episode 85. But in Simple Numbers 2.0, what Greg is doing is really helping us manage our business and knowing which are the numbers that we should be looking at and the ratios. He is the one, as I was saying, that wrote the part of scaling up when it comes to financial. So extremely knowledgeable person. Also, like Evan, amazing EO friend. Greg book is also incorporating some charts, to give example of what he's talking about. I'm not a accounting expert, far from that, but I love knowing the numbers I should be focusing on, but also the strategies to grow businesses. And that's really what Greg is doing. And I think it's also a book that any business owner should be reading when they start their business or when they're managing their business. A third book that is totally different, and it's Jim and Jamie Shields, and they were guests of my podcast, The Business of Meetings, in episode 168. They have reprinted or reissue and updated, I don't know what is the right word, but the third edition, that's what it is, of the Family Board Meeting. The family board meeting, you have 18 summers to create lasting connection with your children. And they detail their approach to their own family, but also any family can apply that. And one of the things that I love in what they're describing is the fact that when they are creating quality moment with their children, they do that on an individual basis every quarter. But there is no phone, no social media. It's just one on one. And this is something I believe in our society is extremely important. Not only to be present physically, but to be really present mentally as well, and to have true quality time. I think switching off all the electronics is a must if you really want to enjoy the time and get to know even better your own children, your spouse. So the family board meeting is also giving you a template on what to talk about, what are the commitment to take, and the accountability. And it's really changing lives. It's really strengthening links in families. And this is obviously something you can apply in your business for the board meeting. But the family board meeting, amazing book. And if I'm not mistaken, they made top list. Whether the Wall Street Journal or something like that. So a lot of people are applying that. And again, it's their concept that you have 18 summers and then your children are gone. I think today in our day and age is probably 25 summers, but kids stay longer at home, which is great as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, strongly recommend the family board meeting from Jim and Jamie Shields. Another book, and he's going to be a guest in next month. Actually, he's going to be a guest on the podcast, so it's like a premiere, if you want. And he will be the guest of, I believe, episode 183 to come. Des Hager has written an amazing book called 15 Minutes of Shame. And you will read in his book, and you will hear as well in the interview, Des has had a tremendous career, really starting from nothing. And developing personality, growing businesses, having a fantastic corporate career. And then one day, he was in a lift with the dog of a friend of him that he was taking care of, and actually shot in the dog, which was terrible, as he acknowledged himself. I mean, it's just the dog didn't didn't die, or there was not like I don't know the right word of basically the story was that he was in the lift, lose a little bit his temper, but it's not that it was smashing the dog, but on the camera it was taken on the internet. And years later, still having people trying to shame him for that. It destroyed his career at that time. He had to resign from the large firm that he was leading. And the interesting thing is that not only everything is done in his life, the millions of dollars that he's raised for charities, the number of people he's helped, the company has built, everything disappeared. Everything was forgotten. And there are people that were aiming at him that basically don't know him. And that I think is also, not I think, it's definitely linked to the first book I was talking about, The Cancel Culture Curse. It's insane. You have people that don't know this, that have little interest in animals in general, and even the society was suing him. You could see, and he's giving example of the difference in treatment that they were doing with him because he had a corporate job versus other people that really were staying, but they were not really considered by this organization to be the target. And then you have people that trolling on the internet. Basically, they have nothing to do in their life than spreading rumors or sometimes false information and aiming at people they just don't know, which is quite insane. And it is extremely well described. It's also a book where I learned a lot in terms of developing businesses. But how do you react? The importance of having your family supporting you, and now is back in the game, and the whole book is describing what he had to go through, and I'm very impressed, and I can't wait to record the episode with him about this book and what happened in his life. So, Des Hager, 15 Minutes of Shame. The next book is a book I read several years ago. And as I'm working with some of business owners and organizing small events, gathering more type of mastermind and dinners, and I want to start doing that again more and more. I thought this is the perfect moment to reread the book of the master of the mastermind dinners, Jason Gaignard. Jason was a guest also of the Business of Meaning podcast. It was episode 100. It's easy to remember. The mastermind dinner. Basically, Jason is explaining the power of mastermind dinner and what to do. It's really a checklist to organize a mastermind dinner, to follow what he's talking about, the blueprint, and organizing your own dinner and getting people together. That's really it's my favorite, and it's very well done. It's a blueprint to organize mastermind dinners. The next book I read this summer, phenomenal book, totally different topic. It's called A Dose of Hope, a story of MDMA assisted psychotherapy from Dr. Dan Engley. Dan Engley, it's probably the most knowledgeable person in the field, or one of the most knowledgeable person in the field. He's done a lot in his life. He's tried a lot. He's helped a lot of people. And basically, what I remember hearing him saying one day was that of all the cases of PTSD, I think over 60%, if not more, are treated in 2 or 3 sessions of MDMA assisted psychotherapy. And that, to me, when you hear about all the veterans that are suffering from PTSD, all the children that have been through a school shooting that are suffering of PTSD, that is something that it's there. It's not legal yet. From what I'm hearing and from what I'm reading, we're looking at probably the next 1 or 2 years to have it legal in terms of being applied in medicine. And so the whole book is describing a process of somebody going through that MDMA assisted psychotherapy, A Dose of Hope from Dr. Dan Engley. Next book, totally different. Also, somebody who is actually was on the podcast last week, because Michael Bungay Stanier was episode 180, How to Work with Almost Anyone. Michael wrote The Coaching Habit that sold over 1 million copies. It's phenomenal. And How to Work with Almost Anyone is also an excellent book to give us hints on what to do, what to say in terms of your relationship with your coworkers, with colleagues that's sometimes difficult, trying to understand the reason or what's the trigger point that they have and why they would be saying or reacting in a certain way, but also what are the words to take and what are the questions to ask in order for you to work with almost anyone. When to view him, I was wondering, like, almost anyone. I like the almost because there are clearly some people that I wouldn't want to work at all because they're a taker and not the right the type of people that I enjoy working with. But anyway, this is an excellent book to help you and me work with almost anyone. Michael Bungay Stanier. The 3 last book that I wanted to share with you today that I read this summer. This one is absolutely phenomenal in terms of geopolitics and what's going on in the world and where we're going. The End of the World is Just the Beginning, Mapping the Collapse of Globalization by Peter Zeihan. Peter is a New York Times bestseller, and he's looking at the world, looking at different parts of the world. He's looking at the end of an era, after World War II and the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. He's looking at transport, is looking at finance, is looking at energy, looking at industrial materials, manufacturing, agriculture. And for everything, he's going back in the past, but also analyzing what is the situation, who are the big players, and then projecting into the future, trying to understand what's going to happen and where the world is changing. It's very, very, very interesting. There's a lot of data, a lot of thought went into this book. And quite surprisingly, if you're thinking about a book on geopolitics, I love his humor. It's quite funny. That's sometimes the way he's writing. So highly recommend that. It is a brick, as we said in French. It's almost 500 pages, but it's really worth it. The end of the world is just the beginning. Peter Zeihan. This book, not new, although decided to reread it, and it is the reference when it comes to mindset. It's the book called Mindset. It's the research from Carol Dweck. It was published already some years ago. I believe it was over 10 years ago. I'm looking into it right now. Cannot find out immediately, but I believe it was 2008, 2000. Oh, there it is. 2006. 2006. And for me, it could have been written today. It's talking about growth mindset. And it's also giving example, whether it's in business, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your children, how you're raising them, how you're talking to them. It's absolutely fascinating. Made me think a lot about my own education and the teachers that I had when I was a kid, and also the mindset I have today, growing my business and helping people. This is a fantastic book from Carol Dweck, Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. Highly recommend how we can learn to fulfill our potential for parenting, for business, for school, and for relationships. And last, but certainly not least, my favorite author and thinker of this era. He wrote Start With Why. He wrote Leaders Eat Last. Yes, it's Simon Sinek. And this is The Infinite Game. I'm fascinated by the intellect of Simon Sinek, the research he's doing, the ideas that he has, and how he's connecting all of them. And in The Infinite Game, he's talking about, it's linked to mindset as well, but he's talking about how you play a game in business. Are you looking at finite game, or are you looking at infinite game? And it's creates so much difference in the way you approach business, in the way you approach life, in the way you're thinking, in the way you're taking decisions, in the way you're treating people, in the way you're creating a culture and a company that people want to stay. And I do believe that is in day and age where we're talking about hybrid between going back to the office or working remotely. We're talking about the different generations working together in the same company. We're talking about keeping people and keeping people a long time in your company. I do believe that more than ever, it will be absolutely important for the success of any business to make sure that their employees, the team, are not only enjoying working with each other, but have an incentive, a will, a purpose to stay in the company. That's where companies will be winning. And he's giving many, many, many different examples. It's extremely well written. It's extremely well taught. Truly enjoyed this book, as you can tell, The Infinite Game from Simon Sinek. So again, my summer readings that I recommend. There was The Infinite Game from Simon Sinek. It's Mindset from Carol Dweck. It's The End of the World is Just the Beginning from Peter Zeihan. It's How to Work with Almost Anyone from Michael Bungay-Stanier. It's A Dose of Hope from Dan Angley. It's Mastermind Dinners from Jason Gaignard. It's 15 Minutes of Shame from Des Hage. It's The Family Board Meeting from Jim and Jamie Shields. It's Simple Numbers 2.0 from Greg Crabtree, and The Cancel Culture Curse from Evan Neerman. Enjoy the read, enjoy reading those books. And when you've read one or two or all of them, reach out to me so we can have a discussion about those books. Thank you, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you again for listening to this episode, and I hope that any one of this book will inspire you. When you've read one, when you've read them, let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback, what you think about it. And if you have any other book that you want to recommend, please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed any of this book, this episode, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.